welcome back to another episode of the Transformation Series. My name is Emily Rentas, owner and founder of Paragon Solstice, a coaching and consulting company dedicated to helping individuals, businesses, and organizations to create a pattern of excellence at its highest peak. I work with individuals around areas of transformation and resilience. And today I have the opportunity to have Mahara on the episode today. She is a life coach who works with women along career transitions and really understanding about how they love their career in relation to their work. She's also an executive contributor at Brainz magazine. Thank you, Mahara, for joining us today. I'm so excited to share your story, the work that you do with your clients, and just the knowledge and guidance that you want to share with folks who are watching today.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be a part of this.
So Mahara, tell us a little bit about your company. I know that you own Mindfulness with Mahara. So tell us a little bit about how you got that started and how that's going for you.
Well, I'm pretty new. I started my company about 4 months ago, and it came through a transition where I transitioned away from my corporate job, and that was due to COVID. But I took it as a sign that I was manifesting the next level for myself, which was to work for myself. I really felt a need to impact more people. So I started my company, Mindfulness with Mahara. I have always been very aware of my physicality. When I wasn't feeling well in my gut, I'm like, oh, why am I feeling that? So I definitely embraced this concept of mindfulness. I also recognized through my years in the corporate world that I loved helping people. And when I looked back on my particular story, I realized that I wanted to help the female professional that loved her career but found herself unhappy. And unhappy because she wasn't being able to speak her truth. You know, I know what it was like to be in a meeting where I wanted to say something and go, hey, oh, I have an idea, but my body just was flooded with fear. So being a very optimistic person, I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that I wasn't speaking up. I'm secure, I'm all of those things, but I found myself in the last year in particular being quiet and feeling less and less engaged with my company and my peers. So I wanted to reach out to women and support them with that. So I've created Mindfulness with Mahara, and to that end, I've created an online group coaching program called the Phoenix Program to really help empower women to ask themselves the questions that are going to take them to a place of feeling grounded and secure in their right to be where they're at in their career.
So what do you think are some of the fears that contribute to these questioning, kind of paralyzing, speaking up? What did you find yourself in the past year or some of the things that kind of contributed to that?
That's a really good question. You know, the onset of COVID really highlighted to me the need to be flexible and change in my work. Mm-hmm. But what I found happening was, as I saw all these other personnel changes going on around me, I began to say to myself, ooh, should I say that? Am I going to rock the boat? I'm not sure where the company's going. I'm not sure if I'm on track with them. So why don't I just wait? Why don't I just keep silent and wait and be told what to do? But every time I did that, I felt less and less engaged, and I felt further away from me. And it became very frustrating. And it got to the point where I just was silent. And I remember reading a quote once: when your most vocal employees stop talking, you have a problem. Mm-hmm. And I went, ooh, that's me. And I wasn't vocal in a negative way. I was just always in there with lots of creative thinking and ideas. And I had no problem putting my thoughts out there to anybody in the company because I felt really engaged. But as I began to question my role and my ability to contribute, I got quieter and quieter. So what I hear when I chat with women today is, you know, the overall fear of, I got to keep my job, right? Especially during COVID, a lot of families are down to one income. And if the woman is still working, there's that fear. I can't rock the boat. I got to keep my job. I can't deal with this right now because of the other stresses. I'm just going to put that thought on the back burner. I'm going to deal with that person later. I actually can't deal with that at all, and I'm just going to bury it and do what I'm told. So I think fear is a big contributor to women getting quiet and feeling their throat constrict a bit at work.
Mhm. And it sounds like COVID really exposed whether it was environments or dynamics where you didn't feel comfortable and things were shifting that were no longer there, or now they're there, and now you're like, whoa, what's going on here?
That's exactly it. And, you know, kudos to my team that I worked with and the company, because we worked really hard to pivot and continue to do what we do for our members around the world and the globe. And it was brilliant. But the truth was, there were smaller dynamics going on around me that affected me greatly. And in retrospect, I'm so happy because this is where I need to be. I'm good with all of that. But I know that there's lots of women that aren't, and they're in that place where they're unhappy. They don't know why. They're feeling the pressure. They feel disconnected from themselves. You know, a lot of my clients, I'll ask them a simple question and they're like, wow, I haven't thought of that in ever. And I'm like, wow, you've never thought of that? How can you not think of that? That's basic to happiness. So it's interesting to uncover the layers that a lot of my clients have put on themselves over the years, the pressure to excel, the pressure to be super mom, the pressure to be, you know, 102% in the boardroom and to be 102% at home. And then COVID was like this flash of drama that just didn't go away. I mean, it's a year and a half later, and a lot of us are still going, what happened?
And I think in all those layers of all these roles, things get muddy and unclear. And what you're proposing is these powerful questions that really get clear as to, what are we doing here? What do I like to do? What would I like to do? What do I want more of? What do I want less of? You know, what have you found that clarity helps somebody through to really undergo the transformation and resilience in their life or business?
Well, the biggest thing that I'm finding is clarity affords women the feeling that they have a right to be there. You know, I'll hear them say, I've done so much for this company. And they say it from a place of angst. And once they get clarity on who, what, where, when, why, then they can say, you know what? I've done so much for this company. I deserve to be here. And I deserve to speak, even if what I say isn't put into place, right? One of the big aha moments for some of my clients is understanding that sometimes in the corporate world, great ideas have to go on the back burner. It doesn't make them a bad idea. It just isn't the right time or place for it. So it's interesting, all the little nuances that we uncover when we have clarity. My goal is for women to be able to own their space in their career with dignity and grace, and learn how to navigate the path that they choose within that company.
So for you in your transformation, you know, in the past year and then after you transitioned, what have you found clarity for yourself in this journey as you're going along? And what do you feel could change along the way, and allowing people that, even though this is what you see now, allowing that space that later on you may need to change your mind?
Well, that's a good question. I think the number one thing that I've personally gotten clarity on is what brings me joy. What brings me joy? I fell into the trap of doing all these other things in my role, thinking it made me happy because I was still working and it fell under the umbrella of my role. But really, there was only a couple things in there that brought me joy. So the big clarity for me was, wow, I love to connect with women or people, but I really love to connect. I love to just talk, and I love to ask questions, and I love to see people go, huh? Thought of it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very clear on what brings me happiness, and I'm pleased with that because I was a little bit muddy about that. The other thing that I'm getting clearer on is not being too attached to the how, but having faith in the why,
Ooh, that's powerful.
right? Because I can lose my mind going around in circles on how I'm going to get this.
Yes.
And then I'm like, you know what? I got to let it go. And I remember, this is so funny. I remember a lot of what my father taught me. He's no longer with us. And there are a few things come to mind. I wrote a post just the other day about the power of belief. My dad taught me how to drive 40 years ago. And he always said to me, when you get in the car and you know you're going somewhere, tell the universe to have a perfect parking space waiting for you. And I was like, what? And he's like, nope, great parking spot is just waiting for me. And whenever I drove with him, that's what he said. And 9 times out of 10, we would pull up to the Safeway in Chilliwack, and there's this great parking spot, like just right where we needed it to be. Mm-hmm. So I learned early on the power of positive thought. And the other thing my dad taught me was I would say things when I was young and, daydreaming about my life. I want this and I want that, but Dad, how am I going to do that? He's like, that's not your problem. You let the universe figure it out. You just be clear on what you want and make sure what you want is for the good of everybody. Yeah. Now, I got to tell you, at 18 years old, I hadn't a clue what he was talking about, but I loved him so much. I just went, yeah, okay, sure, Dad, whatever. Can you take me to the mall? But, now that I'm in this space, in this headspace, these beautiful memories are coming back to me. And I realized that, wow, I have to trust that I'm in the right place at the right time. I don't have all the answers. I'm open to learning. I'm learning so much about social media, about running an online company. I am asking for help and open to it going a different way because I don't know how it's going to work out. I just know that it is.
And I think that what you're talking about when it comes to positive psychology, it's not just like you said, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't. So it may not work out, right? But the whole goal is to bring yourself to a frame of thinking that you're in a more positive state. Because if you're already thinking of the worst, right? And the worst happens, you feel even worse, right? Even worse. But if you're feeling optimistic and maybe something disappoints me or disappoints you, it brings you down for a bit, but not to the level where you would be if you were a constant kind of pessimistic state. And I think that what you're talking about is, hoping for the best outcome, for the good of everybody, and just hoping for that, and that allowing yourself to have hope, and that it's okay, or it doesn't necessarily mean that you're tied to an outcome, because I think what I've seen a lot of folks struggle with this idea of even just saying they have hope. I hope that this happens because this is going to put me in a better state of mood, and I want it's nice to hope for something. And some folks are like, oh, that's silly to hope. So what would you say to a client who comes to you and then they're listening, they're like, oh, but it's hoping, like that's silly, that's wishful thinking?
Well, that's a great point. And what I would say to them is, do you remember what it was like to be a little girl or a little boy? And your daydreams, they were real to you. Mm-hmm. And that was a beautiful thing. And I would encourage you to recognize the power of dreams. And, maybe you don't like to use the word I hope for, then skip that step and say, I am. I am. And live in the positive, live in the moment, like declare it as already happened. It's an interesting way to speak, but I understand how powerful language is.
Yes.
And one of the things that I work with my clients so closely on is having them listen to what they're saying to themselves predominantly, and recognize that just a few little tweaks in language can make all the difference to the energy that they put out and the way that they feel about what they're saying. So, I'm working on voicing my reality as a done deal. I am incredibly successful. When I was younger, I did that with my children. And my husband and I are fortunate to have 2 beautiful children that are very engaged, articulate. We're very close to them. But it was a non-issue for me because I knew all along I was going to raise happy, collected children. Where I faltered was sometimes in my career. I wasn't quite clear on what it is that I wanted or how I felt I should be. But, it's a work in progress. And I want that for my clients as well. Choose your language wisely. If you're going to believe in something, you might as well believe that you can, because whatever you believe, it's going to happen, right? Whether you can or can't, Henry Ford said it, whether you can or can't, you're right.
Yeah.
So let's work on those blocks, that what's stopping you from believing in yourself. And let's change the language and, take it one step at a time that way.
Mahara, I have to say that this has been a great conversation, and anybody who's watching, I hope that you're able to really think about your own clarity in your life, the important questions to ask, the power of language and how you're using it. I appreciate you coming today. Thank you so much. In the description box, you'll learn more about Mahara and her work, and where you can reach her, as well as some of her articles on Brainz. And I will see everybody in the next episode. Thank you, Mahara.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.